let's move straight on to our guest who's in the studio with us today, James Henderson. He's the founder of Soho Communications in London and JBHPR here in Dubai. James, thank you so much for joining us. We've got so much to talk about.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
No, it's a pleasure to have you here. Look, I want to jump straight into it because we're talking about two professions here. PR, which you've been involved in for many, many years.
40 years.
40 years, well, there you go, decades. And PR is something that's been going on for centuries in a way. And AI, which obviously to many of us is relatively new. They are two very different kind of entities, but they seem to be going hand in hand more and more today. Is that right?
Yes, I think that AI is being used by a lot of PRs as a quick shortcut to drafting presentations, press releases, research, and it is probably being overused already.
Just looking at some data, a Muckrack report found that 75% of PR professionals had integrated AI into their workflow by the mid of 2025, so just gone. That was up around 30% from 2023. So clearly, PR firms, PR individuals are using AI more and more. We can delve into so many areas about this, but talking from your experience, both here in Dubai and across in London, are you seeing that more PR agencies, PR individuals are using AI and using it to its benefit?
They're definitely all using it. To its benefit, I'm not sure, to be honest. I've never not seen a press release that's AI generated without knowing immediately it's AI generated. So I think that's a big issue in itself.
What are the signs? What do you see and you know straight away that's AI?
No immediate news angle. A lot of flowery language. Not really saying anything very succinctly. It's missing that nuance, which you can only get from the human touch.
So let's go back 40 years ago when you started out in the PR industry. Just tell us from your vast experience, the huge amount of clients that you have across the board in all industries. What was it like to be a PR back then, and what were the core kind of values that you had to have, things that were just something that you absolutely had to do in order to be a PR back then?
Well, the first thing is actually have a relationship with a journalist, because there were no computers back in the day. There was a fax machine. You used to have to get your press releases biked to the newspaper offices and hope that they would actually open the envelope. It was extraordinary. There were no press cuttings. You had to go to the library to get microfiches to see what had actually been written on. So for a pitch, now you can do a pitch in about an hour. You research, you Google or AI. Then you literally had to go to the library to see what cuttings there were. It would take you half a day.
And so back then, were you also actively kind of meeting people face to face, taking people out for lunches, coffees, dinners, whatever it may be, in order not just to get clients, but also to journalists as well, to sell the story to them? What was it like back then in terms of getting business?
Well, firstly, in terms of servicing clients, I started off in corporate PR. So if there was a big press release, so annual results, that would be a huge media piss up, excuse my language. Always, there would be a big lunch for journalists on the day of results, which would normally go on till about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm not sure how they went back to the office and wrote, but they did.
Shevelled.
Exactly. So PR then was all about the relationship with individual journalists. So every day you were taking a different journalist out to lunch, because there was no guarantee they would get the envelope that you got biked at vast expense that morning. So you actually had to, be able to talk to them. And there were no mobile phones then either. So you'd be ringing them on that, via the switchboard. It was completely different. It was all relationship driven.
When you look at when you kind of started out in the field 40 years ago and the extensive work that you've done over the last 4 decades in comparison to what PR is like now, and let's stick to the UK, what differences have you noticed? How has the industry changed for the good and the bad?
It's changed so dramatically. Firstly, back in the day, if there was a negative article on your client, in the Times, for instance, it was just probably in the Times. Might be a bit of follow-up, Now, if there's a negative article, it's all over the internet, and the client's reputation can be trashed within 3 minutes.
Let's talk specifically about AI integration and its trajectory
Mhm.
as well. I mentioned earlier by mid 2025, three quarters of PR professionals were already using AI tools. What have you observed in terms of adoption trends across your London and your Dubai operations, and how do those markets differ?
So um, I'm not sure they differ that much. I think everyone sort of got a particularly younger generation are using them the same way. I mean, I think that all PR firms should have AI enforcement officers to show them how to effectively use AI,
Interesting.
because I don't think that's being done at the moment, and that's what I want to do. Is how I want here, because I think it's being slightly abused.
And what would that person do?
Really show the full scope of everything available to you uh, within AI, whether that be research, drafting presentations, design. You know, there are some really positive aspects of using AI effectively. And I personally am too old, don't know how to do it. And I don't think half my team do in London or Dubai either, to be fair.
I think AI can help boost speed. I don't think anyone is denying that, and maybe even quality in PR to some extent. But how do you ensure that communicators kind of don't sacrifice strategic thinking or creativity in PR, which is needed every day?
So there should be some guidelines. You need to have very clear ways of briefing AI to come up with a release so you get the best of it. And then you need to make sure that you're actually going to spend some time adding the human element and looking at it, thinking, what's going to make the headline?
Mm.
And is that apparent when you send that press release to a journalist?
How do your clients feel when, or how would clients feel if you say to them, look, we're integrating AI into our systems and, AI might draft a press release and all that kind of stuff. Do you think that clients are like, well, no, I don't want to use you. Like I want proper kind of thinking towards this, or do you think clients nowadays are quite happy to let PRs integrate AI into
Well, if it's going to
their
help
plans?
the service you're giving a client, and it's done responsibly and well, then clearly they will welcome it. But if it's being abused, they won't. So last week we got a complaint from a client saying it looks like this has been written by AI for a press release, which it hadn't, by the way.
Interesting. But then I wonder if a lot of people who are using AI are now naturally writing as if AI writes, given the that a lot of things that we are reading and writing potentially could come from AI. Are we going to adapt ourselves to the way AI writes? Perhaps.
I think that's a fair observation.
Experts warn that over reliance on AI risks kind of dulling empathy, that human kind of touch, that human emotion, critical thinking, your kind of interpersonal skills as well. Do, are you worried about that? Is that a worry in the PR world that kind of AI could cancel out that human touch, that face to face conversation?
It is worrying, but it's, it's already happening before AI. I think that technology, computers, emails mean that people just send emails to journalists without the human touch.
Mm.
And they reckon, certainly in Dubai, what I've noticed is that if a journalist responds to an email, the PR thinks they know that journalist,
How,
which
o-
is
how
very different.
how often were you taking people out for dinner and coffees and stuff back in the day?
Well, I do it now.
Yeah.
So in London, every single day. I mean, one of our sort of key performance indicators for our staff in London, they each have an individual media program. Beginning of the month, you look at who they're taking out.
But that seems to happen a lot less now, doesn't it? There are PR firms out there, um, and individuals who will just happily sit behind their laptop or their phone and try and do their PRing from that way. There is, I don't think there aren't as many PRs which will bring you up and say, let's go out for a coffee or let me take you for lunch.
Totally. It's always been a bit polarized. There are the ones who are good at PR and take all the media out to lunch or coffee or dinner, and the ones that are frightened of the journalists and don't. And my philosophy even now is the media is effectively your client, because the media will be with you for life of your career. Clients come and go.
So who do you find? Do you find the relationship sometimes more important directly with the media?
100%.
Yeah.
It's my currency,
That's
you
very
know?
interesting. What I found as a journalist over the years is that um, many people now, with the kind of evolution of technology and emailing and texting and all that kind of stuff, or Teams, Teams calls, Zoom calls, which we got so accustomed to during COVID, people are happy to kind of stick to that method of communication. And I will happily pick up a phone and ring someone, dial the number and ring someone. And often they're quite shocked that I've rang them and are having a kind of a phone conversation with them. Are you finding that there is, again, it comes back to that human kind of element of just hearing someone's voice? Is there a lot less of that? And do you feel that, particularly in PR, there needs to be more of that?
Totally. As I say, I think a lot of PRs are frightened of the media. They'd much rather hide behind an email than pick up the phone where they might be told to get lost.
What do you do on a day-to-day basis to try and keep your clients happy, people who pay you money to do the PR for them, but also keep the media happy and give them good stories? Can you give us a bit of insight into strategy and whether also AI has played a role in your strategy as a PR firm today?
Well, to answer that last question first, uh, it's playing a role, but not a big enough role. I want to have, as I said earlier, an AI enforcement officer so we can lead the way in how to use AI to its best effect.
And how do you kind of preserve that authentic, emotional, resonant storytelling, which is so important in PR and kind of telling stories and that genuine human
Um,
connection again, uh, in a world which is kind of being increased by AI?
well, the first thing is another sort of fault of PLs often is they don't read the papers.
Mm.
I read different papers in different countries every single day. So you automatically know what the news agenda is and what's going to actually resonate with different media outlets or journalists. And,
Um,
and AI can't do that.
yeah, of course, and that's the worry. A lot of people might turn around and depend on AI to do that, but then you lose that kind of tangible connection with people. And I think that's a huge worry going forward. I want to talk a bit about the two hats that you wear. You've obviously got a setup in London where you've been for many, many years,
hmm
and then more recently out here in the UAE. How different is the PR business world in the UK in comparison to here? And how do you kind of jump between the two? Because you're constantly on a plane, whether it's UK or here or wherever in the world. How do you kind of change your mindset to the different regions that you go to?
Um, I think within Dubai, firstly, the staff trained in a different way to in the UK. So if you're trying to work in the same way here that you work in the UK, that's going to be a big learning curve for your team. So I spend a lot of time training. I think the other things in terms of clients here are not very proactive or sometimes don't see the benefits of being proactive and getting media coverage, and they're very cautious,
Mm.
which obviously in the UK, they even if it's a listed company, they know that there's a 360-degree reputation they have.
And what have you found about the way that other PR agencies operate here in the UAE when you compare it to the UK? Do you see that they have just kind of found their own niche and that's the way that the UAE operates? Or, do they have to adapt where they are?
I think the way it operates, firstly, the media landscape is so completely different because it's 50% earned and 50% paid for.
Mm.
So, and when you open a magazine here, you can't tell. Now you can tell more because the quality of the content's not great. Uh, what's paid for and what's not paid for. In the UK, you would automatically know. And as you know, it's a very, very new thing to have paid for content in UK media.
And do you find, I know you deal a lot in crisis
Mhm.
communications as well. Do you find that people are often finding themselves in kind of sticky situations somewhere out here with kind of media, wanting to write a report on someone or something, or do you find it's more in the UK? Where are you having those kind of more collaborative conversations?
Well, within the UK, because here people are very careful what they're allowed to write.
Mm.
So it's actually very easy to do PR here. There's not going to be a negative article, which is completely different in the UK, obviously.
I want to go back to the idea of AI's integration into PR, and there is this idea of AI's social cost as well, having a wider impact on us humans. There's a growing narrative that AI communication is kind of altering our language, as we mentioned a bit earlier, our emotional depth as well. Do you agree that kind of PR is at risk of becoming more transactional and detached from, all the kind of work that you've done over the last 4 decades?
Yes, but I think there'll always be quality operators. And if you're trying to do a really good job for major clients, you're going to need the human touch. I think where AI is good is that if you're a startup business, you can get in front of the media very efficiently without spending lots of money on an agency you can't afford.
But it's something that you can spot from a mile off. I mean, you've said it yourself. You can see straight away when something is chat GPT'd or AI is involved in that. And so do you kind of uh, are you kind of do you get kind of quite angry when you see that, or are you like, okay, it's fine, we need to integrate it, but there needs to be a certain way that we use it?
I get pleased and angry at the same time. So I get angry if it's been done very inefficiently and you have to redraft the whole release because you can't actually deal with any of it. And then I'm very pleased if it's actually been done very well and it will only take 10 minutes to add a sort of key news angle and headline.
How much are you trying to preserve what traditional PR is, and the kind of world of PR that you've grown up with and worked with, with AI kind of coming in, or are you kind of open to what AI can bring?
I'm open to anything that will improve the service that we give our clients. I say to my team in London and Dubai every month when we look at each client, if someone on the board says, "Why are we paying £5,000 a month? What's the answer?" And if you can't answer that question, you'll get fired. So that's my key performance indicator.
If you don't mind, James, tell us some of the names that you look after here in the UAE, and the UK, and I'd be interested to know about their involvement in AI. Are there kind of clients who are actively wanting AI involvement in some of their coverage? Do you have those conversations with any of the clients at all?
As I said, just this week we had a client complaining that a release they thought was done by AI. So they want the human touch, to be fair. So the clients we work for here, a lot in F&B.
Hmm.
So we look after Fundamental Hospitality and Tasha's Group, who are two of the biggest, fastest growing operators here. And then we do a few crypto clients. We looked after Errol Musk when he was in town,
Yeah,
father of Elon.
of course. Who's the AI baby? You could say that. Yeah.
Exactly. So diverse range of clients. Same in London, where we look after Rocco 40 Hotels and Rocco, who's a very outspoken client and likes being outspoken,
Yeah.
which would be more difficult to do here. So when you ask about the difference between media here and in the UK, the things Rocco says in the UK, he could never say here.
Yeah, so you've probably got to. That's where you step in, and if he was to do an interview here, you've got to kind of temper the way he speaks and all that kind of stuff in comparison to the UK.
Yeah, and tell him how important it is because he quite likes being mischievous. So if you say, don't say that, he'll say it.
Yeah, great. Well, maybe the opposite will work.
Exactly.
Look, James, we've got to go to a break, but it's been a pleasure speaking to you. Some great insight into the world of PR, and particularly the force that is AI coming in and perhaps trying to reshape the way PR works. But with 40 years of experience, it's quite hard to let an entity come and do that, I presume.
Totally. But there is a role for AI,
Yeah.
particularly when it comes to companies and startups that can't afford, glossy consultants.
Yeah.
I just think there needs to be probably some sort of approach that everyone conforms to use it best, to get the best out of it.
You're listening to Mira Business FM. That was James Henderson, the founder of Soho Communications in London and JBHPR in Dubai. James, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us on Daybreak. It's 12:24. This is Mira Business FM. We'll be back just after this.